Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. And they've conducted some interviews. Some reported names have been out there. Some names that they have interviewed have gone elsewhere. Zach Robinson, the latest to do so. He was hired by Atlanta. That was kind of the feeling once Raheem Morris got that job and left the Rams as a defensive coordinator to become the head coach of the Falcons, that he would take Zach Robinson with him to become the offensive coordinator. That, in fact, did happen over the weekend. So that's one name off the board in Zach Robinson that comes from that McVay tree. And so there are some names still floating out there that have reportedly interviewed but have not been hired yet. Jerrod Johnson is one of them. I remember Jerrod Johnson from his days playing at Texas A&M, and he bounced around the NFL and the CFL, and he's been an offensive coach in the NFL since 2017. He was doing a diversity coaching fellowship with San Francisco in 2017. Same thing with the Colts in 2019. Then he became quality control coach with Indianapolis, assistant quarterbacks coach in Minnesota in 2022, and last year was the quarterbacks coach in Houston, where C.J. Stroud obviously had a fantastic first season. So he's kind of ascending up the ranks as a 35-year-old young coach. That's a guy that, I think did a good job this past year. Do Derek Carr and C.J. Stroud possess a lot of the same qualities? Not really. But I think Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, in terms of point in their career, skill set, production over the course of the last decade, are fairly similar. And, Johnson saw some of that back in 2022, even though the Vikings offense was okay. They won a lot of close games that year, but they weren't exactly an offensive juggernaut. But I would be okay with that. Your issue with Jerrod Johnson, he's never called plays. And that's a little scary. Now, everyone's got to have their break at some point, but is that who Dennis Allen wants to hitch his wagon to for what could be his final try as being an NFL head coach? I mean, you got to think about this hire from Dennis Allen's perspective. I'm sure he doesn't think about this way outwardly, but I certainly can. If he gets this wrong and they stink next year and the Saints go 7-10, Dennis Allen is fired and he's never going to be a head coach again. Everything has to go well for the Saints next year, or Dennis Allen's time as an NFL head coach will be over. So that's something you've got to consider when you're hiring an offensive coordinator that's never called plays before. We talked about Klint Kubiak back on Friday. He's got ties to that Shanahan tree, and his team is, he's been in Denver as well. He was the Vikings offensive coordinator, was let go as part of an entire staff that was fired there. Again, that's a Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins comp. Similar styles, similar quarterbacks, similar system. Is that a name that you want to make happen? Brian Griese's team is still playing in the Super Bowl, and he's only been a coach in the NFL for 2 years. Is that a guy you want to go after? And I think, in my opinion, it's going to come from that list of Jerrod Johnson, Brian Griese, and Klint Kubiak. I think those are the three guys. I do not think the Saints are going to hire Ronald Curry. I think if the Saints were going to hire Ronald Curry, he would have already been hired. We were joking there at the beginning like it's only been 2 weeks, but I think 2 weeks and the amount of interviews that they've been able to run through and the guys they've interviewed twice and the fact that Curry has been in New Orleans as long as he has means they know him. Dennis Allen knows who Ronald Curry is. Mickey Loomis knows who Ronald Curry is. Derek Carr knows who Ronald Curry is, obviously. I think if this was the guy, he'd have already been hired. So that swings me back to the other three. And I don't have strong feelings. They're all very, very different. Jerrod Johnson played the position in the NFL, has never been a coordinator or called plays, but he's young, and he grew up in this era of spreading the field and throwing the football. Klint Kubiak grew up in the game. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's been on the Shanahan tree. However, he did get let go as an offensive coordinator. And then Brian Griese is, to me, like still on Monday Night Football, but he's been coaching for 2 years, but has not been in this position in his life. But he's a smart guy. He's been around football his entire life, and he's in an organization right now that's in the Super Bowl again. So there are pros and cons of this whole thing, and that's kind of where I always land on these coaching hires. No matter what team we're covering and talking about, you very rarely know. Like when LSU women's basketball hired Kim Mulkey, you knew. That's the exception, not the rule. The rule is, generally speaking, you're going to hire somebody that's on an upward trajectory. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You never really know. But the fact of the matter is the Saints have got to hit on this. Because, like I said, if they don't, it's going to trigger an organizational reset. And maybe you, the listener, want that. That's something you want. So you're hoping they screw it up so you can clean house and get some new blood in here. I'd push back on that a little bit. I would suggest maybe it'd be a good thing if the Saints did hit on this offensive coordinator and put a better offensive product out there. I couldn't help but watch the first half of Ravens and Chiefs and think, man, these two guys are balling at quarterback. Lamar went south in the second half. These two guys are balling at quarterback, and I just don't see the Saints looking like that anytime soon with Carr calling snaps. But we'll see. Maybe they're waiting on Brian Griese to finish his run here into the Super Bowl for 2 weeks. Maybe we hear something within the next 25 minutes. But I believe that the name of the Saints' next offensive coordinator is going to be Jerrod Johnson, it's going to be Clint Kubiak, or it's going to be Brian Griese. I think those are the three. You can pull the trigger on one of the first two now. Maybe you got to wait for Griese a little bit if he'd rather finish the season before that announcement is made. Dennis Allen, got a little pressure. Got to make it happen. And we'll see if anything develops. We'll certainly let you know. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button. Leave your comments in the section below. And hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.